Hello, everybody. Welcome along. We are back for the first live stream. Would you believe? In 6 weeks, it is the big kickoff on Friday, and we are going to Q&A it. And you can see Mr. Matt SB is with me as well. Before we bring Matt in, let's give the first shout out. Get the comments full of questions. I've got no script. We've got nothing here. We want you to lead this stream. Get your questions in and we will bang through them. Do say hello in the chat. And of course, hit the like button. Matt, how are you doing, fellow championship YouTuber? Are you like me? Are you like a kid on Christmas Eve this week?
Yes, I certainly am. Honestly, it's the must be one of the shortest summers we've had in the EFL, with obviously it starting early because of the World Cup. But I tell you what, it's felt like one of the longest. I can't wait for the ball to get rolling on Friday night with Huddersfield versus Burnley.
It's going to be a right hack, isn't it, through that World Cup as well. Yeah. Basically, we'll enjoy now, and I'll see you in May, basically, is what I'll say. Welcome, Annie. Welcome, John, Liam, Kate. Hello, everybody. I'm loving saying hello to you all, but get some questions in that chat for us to discuss. Anything you like. I want to hear about your expectations, your hopes for the season. Grill us on anything. We've hopefully been across all 24 of the teams, but neither of us will claim to have your passion or your knowledge about your specific team. Evening, Kate, AJ, Dave, Ant. Let's dive in. Jack's got the first question here. Now, I think we've both done these, Matt. Have you done kit reviews yet?
I haven't.
You get on it. Matt will be on it next week. Stick that down on the to-do list. Kits, I had a look. I haven't done away kits yet, but Birmingham's home kit, quite nice. Nice Nike job. Other than Birmingham's, do you know, and I'm not saying this because you're here and you're a Cov fan, that was my number one on the home kit. So I really like the Cov kit. Any thoughts on Blues and that lovely Cov kit and Gus Hamer in a cathedral somewhere lit in blue?
I've just, to answer Jack's question, I've just had a sneaky look at Birmingham City's away kit, and I do like it. They've obviously got the same sponsor as Coventry City with Boyle Sports. The only question mark I'd have is sort of the line sort of stopping, and it kind of like a box would be maybe a bit tidier with the lines around the sponsor. But yeah, that's quite nice. Coventry's kits, I mean, I'm always quite a big fan of them. I think
they're always decent, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been pretty good for the last few years under Hummel, to be fair. And yeah, with the purple kit, that's a throwback to one of our away kits from the 90s. And then our home kit, yeah, it's got the Coventry Cathedral patterns on it. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of both. Beautiful.
EJ, Tavernier to Bournemouth. This has got quite a lot of traction today, and it looks like it may well be happening. Good move. I'll say if the fee is in that 10 to 15 million ballpark, and as I always say, we'll never know because they're all undisclosed now, it could be a good move. But Matt, with Middlesbrough, it's great that they've got the Spence money sat there, and they could have the Tavernier money sat there, and a great manager and a great right wing back. They just got to spend that money. It's only a good move if they... And they're looking at Rodrigo Muniz on loan. They're actually looking at Gyökeres as well, aren't they?
Yes.
But Tavernier specifically to Bournemouth, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a good signing if they bring him in. I mean, obviously, like you say, it's been picking up some traction. Bournemouth, for me, out of the newly promoted teams, the business hasn't... It's been pretty quiet at Bournemouth, to be honest. So I think we could still see some signings come through because obviously transfer window doesn't shut until quite a few weeks after the season starts. But I think they need to bring in some new names anyway. I think Tavernier could be a good signing.
Let's scan down these. Brandon, hello. Kelborn, Dan, I've been saying for ages you two should do a chat together. I think we were on each other's channels last season a couple of times. British chap, I'm sure I met this guy down at Luton, and I know Alexis as well. Hello, everybody. AJ, who has had the strongest window so far? When I was doing this, Matt, I liked Sunderland, I liked Millwall, and I liked West Brom picking up those two big free agents. What say you?
Yeah, there's certainly been some clubs like Cardiff City, for example, have been busy. I think for me, it's the quality over the quantity, and I would agree with what you said on West Bromwich Albion. I'd say for me, they're probably the number one with Wallace and John Swift for me, because obviously John Swift was up there with some of the top players in the Championship last season. So West Bromwich Albion in terms of quality. Millwall with some good names as well. Afobe, Honeyman, Zian Fleming. So
that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, that could be decent. I've always liked Luton Town's business. I think Luton Town always bring in some good players. So
that's just a given now, isn't it? That Luton are going to do good business, isn't it?
Yeah. So bit disappointed with Coventry. I know this wasn't the question, but we might come on to them a bit later. But a bit quiet. But sometimes just holding on to players might be the way forwards.
Looks like Coventry are going to be one of these clubs that are going to fall a little bit victim to the fact that the transfer window hasn't been moved back, but kickoff has been moved back, and you've got these potential 3 big players, and you're kind of waiting almost for one of them to go to then retool, and it can, that can not be a good thing sometimes. Evening, Gary, John, would you both agree this is one of the most open championships on paper? A number of teams that ended last season have recruited well this summer, and for me, the relegated teams are weaker. I agree and I disagree with John there, Matt. I agree the relegated teams are weaker, and Norwich don't have Buendia this time, which was just a guarantee, wasn't it? And, there's a couple of rookie managers in at Burnley and Watford. But when I was totting everything up, got those 5 parachute teams in Middlesbrough, I think are going to be, if that goes well and they're all competent, I think it will be competitive. Because last season we didn't have a kind of top 6, did we? We had a top 2 and then Forest sort of joining on at the end. For me, a strong championship is like 2018-19, where the whole top 6 is good and everybody's, lots of good teams in there. So I would agree with John that maybe the 3 year 1 parachute teams, are a little bit dodgier than Fulham were amazing last year, weren't they? But I think it might be quite strong. What do you think, Matt? Do you agree with me or John?
Yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, but when it came to doing my championship predictions, when I was sort of looking at the top half or even down to halfway down the bottom half, I found there was, for me, the sort of top 5 or 6, which obviously includes the parachute payment teams and Middlesbrough, to be honest, which I think are, your favourites. And then the playoff battle, obviously, because obviously a team that finishes in the playoffs can get promoted. For me, that was almost impossible to predict. So for me, there was like 2 boxes. You have your parachute payments and Middlesbrough, and obviously it's unpredictable. You will have a team that just jumps in there randomly.
And someone will crash and burn, one of those rich teams as well.
Last season it was Huddersfield who finished 3rd, but like you say, it's very different to last season. I think all 3 of the relegated teams for me they've got to get in that top 6. I mean, they won't all necessarily, but they'll be the favourites. And then, like you say, your Middlesbrough, Sheffield United, West Bromwich Albion, they're your top 5 or 6. And then the battle for maybe 5th or 6th place, there'll be, teams chasing that. I think you got Coventry, Swansea, Mill, Luton, even Huddersfield again, maybe. I think it's really hard after that top 6 for me.
I agree. I think it opened up last year because, and it's not to say that rich clubs aren't well run, but I kind of categorise them as the rich clubs, and then I'd have Huddersfield, Luton, Millwall were well run last year, and then Forest just went on a tear, didn't they? I think for the sort of well run, not as wealthy teams, a Millwall or a Luton who you'd expect to be around, it could glass ceiling off. But like West Brom last year, crashed and burned completely, didn't they? So you never know. Someone could do that, fire the manager, and ho, ho, ho. Keep your questions coming in, guys. We haven't done this for a while, but give me a like spike for the first time today. We got 35 likes down in there. Hit the like button. Support the channel. It makes it do better in all the mathematics and stuff. And if you really want to be lovely, and I'll split these right down the middle with Matt, if you do want to super chat, your question will go right to the front of the queue, and you can support us financially. No obligation to do that, but think of it as a little tip in the jar. Right. Where do we get to, Matt? Peter, impossible to predict this year, as is every year. Will Norwich not yo-yo this year? QPR yet another. What were your thoughts on Norwich? I've actually got them going up. I just think the muscle memory in the club is too much. But no Farker, no Buendia. Pookie's 2 years older, but probably still a goal machine. It doesn't feel as certain, does it?
No, I have got them second though in my predictions. I think there is obviously the players that have been in the championship before, and Pookie still being there. He's certainly going to be one of the favourites to be the top goal scorer this season. Obviously, different manager, and like you say, no Buendia. But Dean Smith, hard to judge him at Norwich so far because he had them, in the Premier League, and it was not a lost cause, I'll say, but it was certainly difficult. He's obviously got promotion with Aston Villa, so although it's through the playoffs, he's obviously experienced at this level. I think they'll be in that discussion, certainly as a parachute payment team as well, and with players that know this division. But I have got them to go back up in second.
Nice. Birmingham's away kit, is that BCFC? Just got released at 6. There you go. So I think Mattheson. What do you think of the new? I haven't looked at the Millwall away kit, very much like the home kit. No Sarge, welcome. I am having a lovely summer. Callum, welcome. I don't know who's on the P the League ship there, Barry, which club that is. And welcome, Stephen. Any questions here? James, more on Borough here. With Tavernier possibly on his way out of Middlesbrough, who do you think would be the best replacement? Oh God, I hate these ones. We have to pull someone out of the air. That would be a big pass for me. But I suppose in central midfield, Borough, there's already Howson is long in the tooth, but Crooks was good last season, wasn't he? But if there's 20 million in the pot for Spence, Pereiro went back out to South America as well, didn't he? And we think 10 to 15 million in the pot there. They've got to go in hard on a replacement, haven't they, Matt? It's got to be a bit of a Hail Mary, go for it signing if he does go, right?
Yeah, you'd imagine so. Like you say, I think Middlesbrough's certainly going to still bring in players in other positions as well. Like you said, I don't know what the situation was with Gyökeres, but they've made some good signs already. One of them I was going to touch on was Ryan Giles, who I think might be one of the most underrated signings. An
assist machine, isn't he? In the
certainly is, and he's played for my team Coventry as well. So, I think we'll have to let this sort of run its course, and I suppose we'll see. I find these really hard to predict, but I've been impressed with their business so far, and I think Chris Wilder's certainly good at recruiting.
Which of the relegated clubs could struggle the most to make the top 6? For me, and it's only because I don't know what company's going to be like, but I've got them. I'm the most unsure about Burnley just because they've been out of it for a while. But when I look and I see Rodriguez and Vidra, I think McNeil and Cornet are also on the way out, but there should be some Brownhill, etc. There should be some long in the tooth players who might be able to carry company. What do you say, Burnley?
Yeah, I'd say Burnley. They're the lowest in my my predictions for the season. I think with Burnley though, we could find that we're absolutely wrong with this, and they do really well. I just think it's probably the obvious choice with such a big change, obviously with so many big players going out. I do certainly think they've brought in some good players. I think Company could obviously do well. He did well with Anderlecht, but he's very new to the Championship. Might find his feet. Scott Twine's a good signing, and I think Company's obviously got the pull from Manchester City, so they've been bringing in a couple of youngsters there. They're trying to get Callum O'Hare, but hands off. I think Burnley are probably the team I'm most unsure about, so therefore default they're my pick.
And unsure is not to say that. I remember Jean Tigana with Fulham were like, what's he going to be like? Bam, won the first 10 games or something.
Yeah.
Away they go into the distance. Harvey, he's bigging up the Norwich away kit. I haven't done my away kit review, so I'll keep my powder dry, but I do like the look of the Norwich.
I like the home kit, by the way.
Yeah, interesting. Right, what else have we got here? Ola, which team will draw the most matches this season? Should we just both say Millwall and move on from that one? Dwight McNeil to Everton, needed for Burnley. I think so, Anir. I mean, I think they've... there was all this talk about these loan repayments. And I don't think it's as drastic as it was first made out. But I think given that they didn't get huge fees for... who were the two centre-halves? Tarkovsky... I did get big money for Pope as well.
Was it Ben Mee?
Yeah, it's me, but that was a free transfer as well, wasn't it? Best Luton signing this summer. So who have they bought in? Morris, Woodrow. They bought in a couple. They bought in 4 or 5. It might even be Woodrow over. I know Morris.
Woodrow.
I know Morris. They've dropped a pretty penny on, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't know if Horvath's going to come into that starting 11 from Nottingham Forest. I'm not sure if he'll be a backup goalkeeper. They did, that's right. Yeah. But I'd say Coyle Woodrow because I always rated him at Barnes. I think he's proven in the Championship.
Yeah, he knows the way, doesn't he? It's interesting with Luton actually because, and I'm not saying they're going to exactly emulate Brentford. Everyone wants to emulate Brentford, don't they? But what Brentford did was they did good business, and then all of a sudden the fees started getting higher, and then they were paying 5 million for Mbomo, and then they were paying 10 million for Janssen and lots for Goddard, and you're like, oh, I see how this is working. And you see Luton probably the most they've spent now on Morris. So they might be starting to really wind up that recruitment now. I can't answer this one. Matt, do Cov need another midfielder, or are you happy with the midfield?
Do you know what? It's a very tricky question. That I'd literally say one, to be honest. I mean, obviously other Coventry fans might have their opinion, but I think if we'd have lost Callum O'Hara or Gustavo Hamer, I might have said, that's my dog not surfing my webcam.
What's the dog called?
B. I'll have to correct that in a second. I might have said 2 or 3 to replace such big players, but I think I rate our midfield for now. I'd maybe want a bit more goal power and maybe another defender, but it depends on the ambition. If we're happy to try and just compete for top 12, I'm happy with where we're at.
What do you think of the Norwich away show? You're going to have to wait, John, on that one until I like it, but we'll see what my good missus says about that one. Callum Wright been linked with a load to move to Bournemouth. Who do you think will be this season's top scorer? I suppose we can riff on that. Immediately, my brain goes to Teemu Pukki. I wonder if Rhian Brewster will get it together and look like I know people probably scoff in the comments of that. We see the Swansea Brewster at Sheffield United. What are you thinking on top scorers, Matt? Riff a bit, and I'll bring up the odds on the screen.
Well, last time I looked, Teemu Pukki was the favourite, obviously, with his track record in the Championship and being at Norwich, where he'll obviously get some good service. I think I don't. This isn't for top scorer, but I feel like Ross Stewart coming up from Sunderland could have a really good season. He did obviously in League One. Looking at last season, Joel Perreault, I think he'll have another good season.
Let me dive in, Matt. I'm going to read them out. Pukki's favourite, Perreault, you just mentioned, Brereton, Dwight Gale's on there. Old habits die hard. Daryl DK, Michael Obafemi, Carlin Grant, João Pedro, Bayo for Watford. That might be interesting. Emmanuel Dennis is on there, but I doubt he's still going to be at the club by the end of the window. Pirro could be fun, couldn't he?
Yes. Yeah, I certainly think so. I think Joel Perreault will have another good season. But yeah, I was supposed to mention Ben Brereton Diaz as well. I think Blackburn, there's so many teams with obviously managers coming into the Championship, which I really don't know how they're going to perform this season. Blackburn are one for me. So I think Ben Brereton Diaz, if Blackburn have another good season, he could really be up there.
Thoughts on Bristol City transfer business? No big player going out. The days of the big fee at Bristol City and lots of turnover going. It seems quite sort of focused. I think there's only sort of 3 or 4 come in. Sykes, Wilson, a couple more, can't remember. But
Naismith's a good one.
It's a very good, very good, very surprising pick up, that one, wasn't it? That might be what they need, though, Matt. A bit more stability rather than the big churn that they used to have.
Yes, I think so. I think after last season, I thought they needed to improve, obviously, drastically. I think Bristol City are a club that are capable of obviously getting back into that top half. And I think Cal Naismith was the one that stood out to me. I was surprised Luton, they got him from Luton. And Kane Wilson, Mark Sykes, Ewan Clark. There's been plenty of business going on. I think Bristol City have certainly been one of the busier teams for me. And I said when I ranked their business, they were up there with one of the best teams for me in terms of business.
Do you think Millwall's loan signings from Leeds are good value? Gary, I watched Leeds loads under Bielsa, and Shackleton, I loved. He was like playing in fast forward the whole time. So look forward to him. Can play fullback or central midfield. Didn't see much of Cresswell, I have to say. So keep smashing it, Ben. Other than Paul Ince, who's the first manager out the door? Speaking of out the door, I think Matt's gone out the door at the moment. Kate, that's a tricky one. Managers, Nigel Pearson is never far away from spontaneously combusting. And I don't want this to be the case, but the Potsos can obviously be very impatient. I think Paul Ince is you would hope John Eustace at Birmingham gets some time, given all the sort of chaos there. I obviously you don't want to be predicting any managers to lose their job, Matt, but someone will be gone. And let me put this as an addendum on the question. I wonder whether the World Cup will either delay things and people will wait until November, because let's be honest, there's always 4 or 5 gone by November, and that's just the way it is. And there's normally half the league gone. Anyone you think who's it's sort of walking on broken glass already?
Obviously, with this question, I look to my teams in the relegation battle for my predictions and just sort of think, obviously, Rotherham have stood by Paul Warne for a long time, so even if they do struggle this season, I think they will stand by him. Another team people are putting to have a poor season is Birmingham, but like you say, Eustace, they should at least give him some time. With Reading and Paul Ince, I think he's earned the chance to obviously do what he can do this season after what he did last year, because he kept them up, and it was tight, to be fair. It wouldn't surprise me if Watford are the first to make a sacking this season, to be honest, though.
It'd be so brutal. They should put that in his contract. He has to have until the end of the season. But there you go. Parker seems to be setting us up for counter-attacking football with Tavernier and Rodwell. This is a Bournemouth comment from Will. Lou, the predictions were a good watch. Thank you. Now, Lou put his predictions out, and I was walking my dog, and it was before I'd done mine. So it flashed up on my phone, and I refused to read them before I'd done mine because I didn't want to be influenced by them. But I have read them since, Lou. So check out on his Substack. I think at Lou Orns on Twitter there. Where is City going to finish next season? Bristol City, I had... Bristol City fans won't like this. I think I had exactly the same place. I think I had them in 17th. I don't see them shooting right up the table. What do you say, Matt?
Yeah, it was 17th or 18th for me, which after what I said about the transfer business is a bit harsh, but it could take some time for them to gel. I think they've got an interesting set of first few games. That Hull City, Bristol City game for me is really going to be interesting on that opening weekend because I think they both had very busy windows. But yeah, I just found, like I say, 18th up to 12th, I was shuffling it around so much. So I could have certainly pushed Bristol City up the table, but they've held in my predictions, to be honest.
God. George, where do you see Ipswich going in the next 5 years in this season? The normal answer with Ipswich is nowhere fast, isn't it? But this is the worst thing. Everything looks beautifully set for this season, but we've said that before. So maybe playoff semi-final defeat on penalties in the most cringeworthy, awful way would be the way forward. Who will score the first goal in the Championship 22? Right, we can get this down to two teams because Huddersfield and Burnley play on Friday night.
Good question.
Huddersfield set play then. A Huddersfield centre half maybe, or a Scott Twine free kick or something like that. What do you think, Matt?
I was just going to pluck Scott Twine out. I think I've put my prediction out as a 1-1 draw for this. I think that'd be an interesting game. Obviously, both so close to being in the Premier League last season, with Burnley just going down and Huddersfield just not going up. I think it's a really exciting first game. And I expect not masses of goals, but I do expect there to be a goal or two in this one. So, I'd say Scott Twine for me. It'd probably be the bookies' favourites for that as well.
Luton, good business. Not sure they'll repeat last year. Look, if they do, that'd be sensational. Kadra, good move. Sheffield United, yes. Sheffield United need to replace Morgan Gibbs-White's goals, don't they? Connor, back here regardless. Yes, if you're a Fulham fan, a Forest fan, or a Bournemouth fan, keep watching. Don't leave us. We had your backs last season, didn't we, hey? Brian, Coventry done well so far to hold on the top players. Will be interesting Sunday. Stadium Alive, what's your thoughts, Matt? I know your predictions are out already. And can you parlay this into a bit about Sunderland? Because Sunderland are not a normal club coming up from League One, are they? That is a big fan base and a big club with lots of expectation.
Yeah. Coventry in recent history have got a good record against Sunderland, whether you want to put that into consideration or not. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I think, obviously, we're all going to have to go away to the Stadium of Light at some point. I think the first game of the season is not really how I would have planned it because there's going to be this massive buzz. It's obviously on the Sunday and it's at 12 o'clock, which is a bit inconvenient for the Coventry fans going. I've said a draw. I think Coventry have obviously got a bit more championship experience, but Sunderland are going to be a massive club and obviously expect them to be higher in the table than maybe the quality of their team shows, just because of that fan base roaring them on.
There's going to be this weirdness before the transfer window, and I'm talking about maybe like Sheffield United with Berger, Watford with Sarr and Dennis, Coventry with Hamer, O'Hare, Gyökeres, where you're going to look at August and that's not going to look like what it's going to look like in. Do you know what I mean? There are certain teams where you'll look at August and you'll be like, okay, they're building their team for the season. Whereas these ones that have got these big star players that Premier League clubs are going to be interested in, August might, looking back, seem weird when we do look back. But there we go. Up the Tigers, yeah, Hull are going to be fun this year. As a Norwich fan, we will not get promoted. I think top two will be Borough and Sheffield United. Kelvin. Kelvin's confident, Matt. Ownership a mess. Stadium's a mess. Squad a mess. The joy of being a Birmingham fan, but still. Oh, there you go. Okay, still think we'll survive. Well, good luck. I'm sure you'll agree with me, Matt. It's a nightmare when you're doing your predictions. You don't want to predict anyone to go down, but 3 teams are going down, aren't they?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to the Birmingham fans. They are in my bottom 3.
Mine too.
But if there's any team that knows how to just get over the line, it is Birmingham City. And obviously, Championship experience could do them good to get over the line this year. I think it's going to be interesting. For me, there was 5 or 6 teams in that discussion when I was doing my predictions video, so I could see Birmingham just surviving again. But yeah, it's a big year, this one.
Brilliant stuff, guys. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Keep them coming. We've got 75 on the likes. Hit the like button. See if you can get us up and over 100 likes. And any super chats would be greatly received and split right down the middle between myself and Matt. I think we've already done Bristol City, Ipswich, etc. Tossy. Sunderland are bigger favourites than not to finish in the top half with the bookies. Am I missing something? Would you say a bottom half finish is more realistic? I think, Matt, this is a case of sometimes with, quote, big clubs and the amount of money the bookies take because of the size of the fan base, it can shorten a price more than perhaps is. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, they were in League One for 4 years, and I'm pretty sure season after season they were the favourites, such as Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich will be this season. I'm sure you're used to Ipswich now being the favourites in League One most season, and it obviously doesn't always pay dividends. You know, the bookies will obviously back the bigger clubs to finish higher than respected. I've put the mid-table, to be honest. I think Sunderland, obviously, with any newly promoted or relegated team, are a wild card, but I just think, not to be disrespectful to Rotherham, but they might be a bit more predictable than Sunderland, who are coming up. And I think there's going to be a real buzz at the Stadium of Light as if they can get off to a decent start this season.
I think they've got championship-ready manager as well. I think Alex Neil, he's no age either, and he seems to have been around forever already. Nick, the news of the changes to parachute payments could affect the team's attempt getting up. Well, I need to do a lot of reading on this, but my immediate reaction when I see potential changes to parachute payments and distribution is, right, what are the Premier League trying to get out of it this time? Because they're never going to give too much up. So I will have a read on it, but I'll say no more for the moment. Sing, Ben. Well, tell me what you want me to sing, and I will sing it. My daughter is asleep next door, so I can't sing too loudly. Come on, you R's. Dan, our Nottingham Forest, a surprise package this season. That's so hard to tell with that turnover up in the Premier League, isn't it? What will all those signings mean, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, they've made the most wholesale changes, and obviously they had to with obviously the team they had last season. I just look at Nottingham Forest manager Cooper. I really rate him. At Swansea City, yeah. I just knew he was going places, and him and Forest just fit, don't they? So I think they will have a good season. Some people might not expect them to. I just think I'm looking on previous history of clubs that haven't been in the Premier League for a while, and that first season, Sheffield United, Leeds, Brentford, and obviously it doesn't necessarily mean Forest will follow that trend, but I just think because some teams won't know what to expect when they play Forest, and we saw in the FA Cup when they played Leicester and Arsenal and Liverpool, they gave those Premier League teams good games. So I think Forest will do well. I think they could do quite well at the City Ground.
And Cooper's, I agree with you. Cooper's definitely, he deserves his go at the big leagues now, doesn't he? After a great apprenticeship in the Championship. Anyone else coming on for a live Q? Well, we'll see how that goes. Great to have Matt on today. We'll see. I've got no idea what we're going to do with the live Q&As this year, but that's bold. First manager to be sacked. I'm going with Jones at Luton. All opinions are allowed on here, but I think he's fairly well entrenched as one of the least managers, I think, to be sacked. But I've been wrong before many times. Kev, thoughts on how you see Sunderland doing in the Championship? Personally, be happy with mid-table. That's interesting because, like you say, with Rotherham and Wigan, it's like just get above the line, isn't it? But just Sunderland feels a bit different. I think we agree, Kev. The expectation is that anything between the bottom six, that third quartile, and push on, I think would work, wouldn't it? Dean Smith to be sacked by Christmas. Well, let's see. Liam, how high is Bristol City's ceiling this year? As a fan, I'm not expecting us to rip up trees as long as we improve on last year. That's good for me. Yeah, I think I agree. I think that is stability. So I'm going to crack on through, Matt, and we'll get one to you in a sec. Yes, I'll be on Lions TV at 8 p.m. tonight. Long shift for me. We're talking Millwall there. We've done leading scorer, Ewan, but there we go. Do you think Adebayo would be Luton's top scorer again, or do you think it'll be more spread out with Morris and Woodrow coming in? I think Adebayo will be Luton's top scorer. I think he's excellent. And I happen to think as well, if they'd had either him fit or all of those 3 strikers, I think they might have got to the playoff final, looking at that semi-final last year. But be good for, I think, Adebayo as well. Another one, Matt, is Reece at Preston. I think could do a nice season. What do you think about these? Not necessarily mentioned with a Pookie or a Dwight Gale or a Pirro. What do you think about Adebayo?
Yeah, massively rated him. I think that when they came to Coventry last season, they did a 1-0 away job on us. Of course they did. And Adebayo got the goal. He's ruthless. I really, really do rate Adebayo. I think they've added goals with some of these new signings, but I don't think for me anyone's going to overtake Adebayo as long as he has an injury-free season. And probably the same for Reece at Preston, because Preston have made some decent signings. But I do think Reece will, with his experience on the last, season, I think he'll have... I think he'll be their top goal scorer again.
John, Norwich have had a dodgy pre-season. All I'll say about pre-season is I normally, whatever the team's done, flip it on its head and expect the opposite when the real football. That's my feelings on pre-season. I once saw Ipswich lose 6-1 in their last pre-season friendly against Charlton and then win the first 4 games. So you never know. Rob Edwards at Watford would be the... I hope you're wrong, Anthony. I hope finally they pick out the young up-and-coming English manager. Do you think Michael Beale will have... That's a good question, isn't it? So Michael Beale is another of our unknown quantities at QPR. Matt, I was in trouble with the QPR fans. I had them dropping down into the bottom half on the basis that Beale was a rookie and they finished last season really poorly. And when you actually did... I know you crunched the numbers... A lot of it was predicated on Chair and Willett being brilliant for, and you can't. Okay, they're great players, but you can't always rely on it. What are you thinking about Beale and QPR, particularly getting that start?
Once again, I could have shuffled Queen's Park Rangers' position quite a bit because obviously I like the quality and obviously what they did last season, but it's going to be different. Obviously, Warburton. It was very strange last season with Warburton. Obviously, they carried on a brilliant 2021, then fell away in 2022. So I do think change was probably the best decision. Beale is a bit of an unknown. If we're looking at experience in this division, Beale is obviously on the lower side of that, but obviously he needs his crack at this. And I think it's interesting, this QPR. I mean, I keep referring to this first weekend. That Blackburn versus QPR, obviously 2 new managers locking horns. I think that's going to be a really interesting game. I've put QPR, I think, right in the middle of my mid-table as well. So I think that was a safe bet because I could see QPR swinging either way.
I wonder as well, will someone be able to get Keenan Davis on loan? And if they can, would Stevie Gerrard give him to Mick Beale? And if they get Keenan Davis, you're like, okay, right, here we go.
Well, that changed things.
Yeah. So we'll see. We think, I don't know if that's gone through. Philogene Bidas, I think he's gone to Cardiff today. I need to catch up with all of that. We think a few of the Villa players are going to be loaned back down to the Championship. Poor old Rob Edwards. We wish Rob Edwards the best of luck. And look, if he can keep Ismail Sarr and playing for 35 games, he's probably going to be in the top 6 by default, isn't he? But there we go. Right, this is a great question. Is it make or break for Russ Martin at Swansea? Yes, it absolutely is, because we all love Russ Martin and he's very handsome and he talks very well and his teams have lovely stats, but he needs a top half. He needs a winning season, is what I was saying. I think MK was 19 and then 13 and Swansea was 15. And we watch it and they keep the ball and they make some lovely moves and Pirro's great and all of that. But it's going to start to seem to be all hype if he's not in the top half, top 10, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly enough, I watched your championship predictions where you said this exact same thing with Swansea City. I think in terms of possession and, teams, I mean, they did, obviously, when I see teams most is when they come up against my team, Coventry, and I saw them do the double over us last season, and they seemed to get early goals, then hold on to the ball, and they were just really a nightmare to play against. But you're right, with all this hype, you now want the delivery. And I think a lot of us, looking at our predictions and the bookies as well, are pushing Swansea up. So now the expectation is there. I think he's got to go out and get it. I don't want to set an expectation for Swansea, but they should at least be sniffing around that top 10 for me.
And Pirro could be over 25 goals, couldn't he? He looks, if they can get him on the pitch 40 times this season. Brownhill nabbed 3 assists in 1 game in pre-season. Would be the surprise package in that team. Talking Burnley there. Ben, given his achievement with Shamrock and Northern Ireland, can Michael O'Neill still do well at Stoke City? Jury's out for me, I have to say. I was really high on him when he first came, but just these tails off towards the end of each season. In fact, people were asking, who might be in trouble. Surely Stoke with 16, 15, 14 are the 4 finishes for a club of that size with that spend. I don't know. And he was brilliant for Northern Ireland, but this is club management now. Where are you on Stoke, Matt?
I think they're in my bottom half. I think I put them 15th this season, and I would kind of say what we've said about Russell Martin. Not that there's massive expectation for Stoke City for me, but I do think this is a make or break season for Michael O'Neill. I do think he's got to deliver this time round. Some of their business is actually quite interesting. Laurent's a good signing. Aidan Flint as well. So there's a couple of players coming in. I think this is a season where they've got to push on a bit. And I find Stoke one of the hardest teams to predict in this division, if we're going to be honest.
I'll put this to Matt and I'll put this to the chat. 4 years ago, if someone signed Dwight Gale, everybody would be ticket, goal machine, 25 goals. Okay, ain't going to do much defending, but it's going to score you a load of goals. Is Dwight Gale still a championship cheat code, or are we just up in the air on this? I don't know.
He'll get goals this season. I'm a bit unsure as to how many I think he'll get, to be honest. I think that'll be massive for Stoke City's season. If he can go on and have, one of his amazing championship seasons, that could just be enough for Stoke City to be in that playoff battle. So we need to wait and see. Is it 32 now? Just past 30, I think.
Yeah,
so,
thereabout. And Stoke as well.
To see.
If you look at Nick Powell's numbers, it has the air of, again, I keep saying get him on the pitch for 30 games, but that could be as big a thing if they can just get Powell, Suter, etc. back on the pitch. I think, who was it commented about the Luke talking about the injury. So yeah, and Tyrese Campbell as well. So there's players there, isn't there? Keep your questions coming in, guys. 94 likes. Come on. Get us up and over 100, you lot. Brilliant support tonight. I'm scrolling down here. That's an interesting one. Did championship clubs take a punt on Lewis Grabban? So there's 2 sides to this coin. One is the reputation, maybe as I'll choose my words carefully, but as if some type of dressing room influence. But the other is that he's always done well and scored goals in the championship. If you were sort of in the middle somewhere, would you take a punt on Lewis Grabban?
Yeah, I think mid-table teams would maybe be attracted towards Lewis Grabban. Obviously, his championship experience speaks for itself, his numbers, obviously. So, he's not going to get massive amounts of game time at Nottingham Forest this season for me. So I think, maybe a mid-table championship team trying to get some goals to push them towards the playoffs. So I think it's worth the punt. So I think I could see someone.
CB97, could this be the most competitive championship yet? Anyone who watches my channel knows I'm going to say 2018-19, where Marcelo Bielsa couldn't get in the top 2, and then you had the Derby with the low knees and Villa with Grealish, Abraham and Mings, and West. That 18-19, I think Norwich and Sheffield United to get top 2 in that were outstanding, weren't they? So I don't think it will be the most competitive yet. I think the top 6 might be a bit ceilinged off, would be my thought. SJ, who do you think is the hardest start? I did a Watford podcast yesterday, Matt, and I didn't realise. I think they played 3 other parachute teams in the first 3. I think they played Blades, then West Brom away, and then somebody else, and then Middlesbrough at the end of the month. So I think maybe Watford have a tricky start. Anybody else? I know you've done your predictions already for this weekend, but anybody else ticking that box for a tricky start?
Yeah, no, I was thinking Watford. The other team I clocked onto was Burnley, because obviously they've got Huddersfield, which I really don't know what to think of that. And then they are playing Watford, and then they've got Luton. So I think that's obviously 2 playoff teams from last season and a fellow relegated team. So if we're just looking at the first 3 games, Burnley or Watford for me, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Agreed. That's a great question. Do you think Cardiff have bought well enough? Is there a danger they may do in Ipswich 18-19? So in 18-19, to be fair, Ipswich, it's like the worst transfer window in football history. It's like sell all your best players and buy players that all do nothing. I don't think Cardiff will do that, but I accept the comparison when you make such wholesale changes that it can just sort of dip off a little bit. Anthony, could we see Coyle Woodrow lineup as number 10 behind Adebayo and Cornick, Morris? I think they'd only do that at home, wouldn't they? Matt? I think they'd go maybe a little bit more solid away from home, and maybe especially with 5 subs this season. What do you think?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we saw that in the 2 playoff games against Huddersfield. That's just sort of what they do with the home and away, and they certainly like to grind out the 1-0 away wins. So yeah, you might see him in different roles for the home and away games, to be honest.
Keep your questions coming in. We're up 40 minutes now. It's great support today, and we've got 100 likes, Matt. Unbelievable things. So we'll go up to the hour, and then, as someone said in the chat, I will be on the Lions TV later. Matt, do you just want to give a quick plug for your channel and your Patreon, where people can find you on Instagram and Twitter if people are not familiar with you?
Yeah, no, of course. It's Matt SB for anyone tuned in that hasn't seen me. Obviously, do football content on YouTube as well. Similar to Ben's in a way, do Championship predominantly, but I'm branching out to doing a bit of Premier League, League One, League Two. And I've got a Patreon as well. So if you look at my channel, you're interested, do feel free to sign up to that and support me financially, because I've not long gone full-time on it. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on today, Ben.
And I'll very much in Matt's corner. I know how hard this game is. So if you have got room to support me as well as Matt, please do so. I hate this question, but Ewan's perfectly within his rights to ask it. Surprise team. I keep throwing out Hull because I have no idea what these kind of incomings and, Seri and the couple of 2 fans come in and say Edmonesh. I know Keane Lewis Potter's gone. Hull would be mine, but I don't know. That would probably just be that there's more of a sort of disparity in where they could finish. Is there any possible weird playoff challenger that no one's going to call, Matt?
I think Hull City is the team everyone's picking up on because of their business, and obviously they'll be looking to push on this season. I think with Hull City, we could see if we're thinking of teams to have a drastic push towards a playoff charge, you obviously have to look in the lower echelons of the table from last season. In terms of teams that were on the cusp that I might just put in there this season, my sort of wild card for this year is Millwall, who always seem to be on the cusp. For this season, I've just pushed them into my top 6. I think Millwall's business has been good. They were certainly I think they were the second best home team last season in the Championship. So I think Millwall, for me, are going to be my team to push up. But if you're looking for a team to really climb 10 places, you obviously have to look lower down the table, and possibly a Hull. Like we said with Sunderland, I mean, obviously it depends on what people's expectations are. So Sunderland could be that surprise team, and maybe Wigan as well as a newly promoted team.
Sunderland, home form and a good start, and they get going, and you don't know. Peter, unbelievable scenes. £4.50 on the Super Chat. We'll split that down the middle if anyone wants to Super Chat. Peter, very, very kind indeed. We thank you very, very much. I'm going to scroll back up now. There's only problem with such good support and so many comments. I'm padding, Matt. I'm padding. Where are we? There we go. That was where I was. There's been a lot of comments. I put a couple of tweets out, Matt, about young players coming through. Sinclair Armstrong there at QPR, mentioned by Dave. I think we've just done another Dave Dark Horse biggest surprise. Twine hasn't played in pre-season, had a knock. Hopefully we'll see him on Friday night.
There goes my prediction.
Of course it does. You get your money back off the bookies if he doesn't start, at least. Any teams, Yvonne, you think might surprise? I think we just answered that one. Which of last season's... Oh, that's a great question, Nick. Which last season Championship players who are in the Premier League will shine? Now, obviously getting a lot of trouble supporting my great friend Alexander Mitrovic from the salacious and awful fake rumours that he can't do it in the Premier League. So I'm hoping he can bang in some goals for Fulham. I'd like to think Billing can do a trick, and maybe Zamira, the young left back. I've mates with his dad. But I'd love to see Brennan Johnson keep stepping up at Forest. What say you, Matt, in terms of that? Not the top three, but the 3 promoted teams.
Yeah, just the name you mentioned there, Brennan Johnson for me, because obviously he's younger, he's getting better, and I think for me, I had a feeling that if Forest weren't to go up, I had a feeling he'd have maybe got snapped up by a Premier League team because he was terrific.
Oh, he'd have gone
to
Brentford. Yeah,
he was terrific last season. So I think he'll be very instrumental to Forest. I agree with what you said about Mitrovic. Actually, I'd love for him to have a very good Premier League season and prove all these sort of theories wrong. And as for Bournemouth, I think Solanke could have a good season in the Premier League.
He's another one who people are suspicious about, aren't he? Mal's Monty. I don't know if he's one of your mates, Matt. Play up Sky Blues. #last. Not going to come last, are they? But he's super chatted £5. So very, very kind. Thank you. Anyone who super chats will split these down the middle as I scroll all the way back up the chat to find the next question. Oh, God. Thoughts on the first game? I've literally given it no thought. And Ipswich managed to get Colchester. Is it one of those where you would quite happily accept your team getting knocked out early in that one?
For me, I think with these games, I always walk out and I know if we win or lose, my mate will turn to me and be like, that's what we wanted. Because obviously if you lose, you go out, you can concentrate on the league is what they'll say. And if you win, then obviously you can go through and maybe play a big boy. Ipswich v Colchester is an interesting one, though.
After Colchester players used to play for Ipswich as well. So
there you go.
They'll be enjoying it there. Lenny, how do you think Keane Lewis-Potter will do in the Premier League? Lenny, I don't think he's going to make more than, what do you reckon, 15 starts? I think they'll drip him in. I've always liked him since he first came on the scene. He really benefited from that year in League One. I wonder whether they'll play him wing back at Brentford too. Did you think he's ready to go straight in and play a lot of games in the Premier League, Matt?
That's a tricky question. He might sort of bed in as the season goes on. Actually, with Alex the other day, Alexis, we did a video talking before he'd gone about who my sort of young player for the season would be. And I did pick Keane Lewis-Potter. He's since gone. And that, for me, I'm not massively surprised by. I do think he was heading to the Premier League, maybe a season early, possibly. So he might find this is a sort of season where he beds in and then maybe the following season he's more of a starter. So I wouldn't expect him to start in the first few games, to be honest.
Best goalkeeper in the league, says Kelvin. I like Woodman back at Preston. I liked him. I was surprised he didn't get in for Bournemouth, but Travers did so well. I thought, oh God, what was Huddersfield keeper called, Matt?
Lee Nichols.
Thank you, Nichols. I thought Nichols was great last season. Any other names to throw in there in terms of keepers who you think might be having a good season?
I was about to mention Lee Nichols anyway, just because of how amazing he was last season. I mean, Huddersfield, just in general, could be very interesting. Obviously, that could depend on how Lee Nichols does this season. This is a tricky one. I mean, I'm not just trying to throw my bias in there, but I think Coventry City with Simon Moore, I think
he had a good season last year.
He had a very good season. So that could be. I'd like to see the odds on that one for the best goalkeeper of the season, because that, for me, there's no standout favourite.
I never normally say no to this. Can we get a meal? But Enid is like fast asleep, and if I wake her up, I'll be in more trouble than it's worth. So it's going to be a no, Jay Turner. But any other time of day. I've just seen another super chat come in, so I'm going to be a real technical Luddite and scroll down. Callum, thank you so much. £5 on the super chat. Thoughts on the reported deal that Marcus Tavernier moving to the Cherries for 12 million? Oh, now we've spoken about Tavernier, Callum, right at the top of the show. Force, I like a lot, and I think that would be a good sign. And if they can get him on a permanent, I'll talk about that last angle on that question. Marcus Force obviously had Ivan Toney ahead of him at Brentford, so go figure.
Yeah, no, that could be interesting. I'd like to read a bit more on that because, Force could be very important to Middlesbrough next season. Looking at the squad they're building, I could see Force getting in there and bagging a few goals.
Yeah, they need to sort out that goal scoring issue. Right, where am I scrolling up to? Will Luke Freeman score? Luke Freeman hasn't gone to Millwall. He went to Luton, didn't he? Freeman went to Luton. Am I right? Someone fact check me on that one. We've got 24 teams to cover here. Will, do you think if teams like Everton get relegated to... Right, you're asking the two wrong blokes about this, because if you ask a YouTuber when there's the possibility of someone the size of Everton about to go down, silently praying that they get Everton in the league that they're going. Look, obviously, people like Matt and myself love to have a Newcastle, a Leeds, a Villa, whoever. So, yes, obviously it would boost the profile of the league. England's women played great last night to reach the final. Did you watch that, Matt? I haven't watched that. I must admit, I'm full on cold turkey on football at the moment, so I haven't watched any of the women's Euros, but it was all across my Twitter last night.
Yes, and I was keeping up to date with it. I went to the pre-season friendly, the Nottingham Derby, actually last night, which was quite good fun. But the England's women have been doing brilliant. I don't know if you've seen the Russo's goal yet.
I have seen the backheel. I have seen the backheel goal, which was. And the final is on Sunday, I think at 5. Actually. So I'm sure that'll do massive TV numbers, and it'd be great to see them get the win. Dave, do you think the World Cup break will have an effect on teams? Yes. Look at Luton last year. They didn't play between, I think, like the 10th of December and probably 4 weeks later. And then they absolutely blitzed the second half of the season. So, I think a little break might do certain teams good, especially you imagine a team with like Luton's tactics where it's very energetic and they can almost compartmentalize. There you go, that's a good word for a musician. The season into two halves and do all the training in that way. The smart, I'm sure all the data scientists and the fitness people are all planning it in two distinct blocks already, aren't they? It's going to be peculiar though, isn't it? Just stopping for 4 weeks.
It's unprecedented. It's going to be crazy. I think, the answer for me is yes as well. It'll obviously have a positive effect for some teams and negative. Obviously, if some teams are wanting to get players back from injuries, it's the perfect time. And then obviously there'll be teams going into the World Cup in terrific form and it'll come at the worst time. But it's going to be so crazy. It's just that how long this break is. But we'll see what effect it has when it comes to it, I suppose.
And I was talking to the Watford boys on Do Not Scratch Your Eyes, and they were talking about if you're Ismail Assar and you're going to the World Cup and you're worth loads of money, you almost say, okay, I'll stay with Watford until the World Cup. Then you're literally in the biggest shop window that exists for a footballer. So there might be a couple of players who actually go in there who are kind of looking at that as a exit strategy mid-season. So
yeah, exactly.
You really don't know how agents particularly are going to play it. Guys, we have got about 7 minutes before we've done the hour. Support's been fantastic. I think we've had 3 or 4 super chats. Thank you to everybody. Got 117 likes. So I'm going to give my last call out. Give us a like spike here. See if we can get that up towards, I don't know, 100, 130. Is that selfish, Matt? Can we get to 150?
135.
There you go, 135. He's more ambitious than me. There we go. Keenan Davis has done his hamstring. There you go. He's not going anywhere on loan at the moment. Will Luton ever get a new stadium? Yes, of course they will. But what year that will be, I don't know. And I will miss the Kenny. Will Sheffield United go undefeated in their first 4 games? I do not think they will, Sheffield United. FTV. Here's a good one for you, Matt. Do you think Coventry could realistically push for playoffs after the players they kept in a flying pre-season? We talked about this possible glass ceiling there might be for Coventry, Swansea, Luton, Millwall this season. What say you?
Yeah, obviously, as a Coventry fan, I've been following the trajectory that we've been going on, and each season for 5 years now, we finish higher up the pyramid. Even if last season was just 4 places, I'd honestly still take just 1 place next season. Just keep pushing. I think it's hard to say with how competitive it is going to be for the playoffs this year. We don't know how well Bristol City, Cardiff City, Hull City will advance this season. They might not. I think the battle for the playoffs is going to be absolutely crazy. Coventry's pre-season has been absolutely fantastic. We've won 7 out of 7, I believe. But like you said...
that's terrible news.
Yeah, that's terrible news.
That's a 1-0 defeat on the first day coming, if ever I saw it.
But I think Coventry always usually have poor pre-seasons, and then we go on to have a good season. So let's hope the reverse doesn't happen here. But
I know which way around I'd have it, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned Ohran, Gyökeres and Hamer still there. But like we said, because none of them have gone out, we haven't had that domino effect, meaning we've got funds to then bring in players. So we're kind of we're probably one of the teams from last season that's most similar coming into this season. There's obviously been a few additions. Panzo's one I'm quite excited about, and Casey Palmer, if he gets into that team.
Someone's got to get a tune out of him sometime, haven't they?
Absolutely. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if we finish similar to last season, maybe a little bit higher or a little bit lower.
Andrew says, bet you're buzzing for Bolton on Saturday, Ben. Well, Andrew, I've got some bad news for you. I was buzzing for Bolton, and my season ticket arrived on Monday. I can't go. I'm now otherwise engaged on Saturday. So the first Ipswich game, I'm going to be at Burton on August 16th. So I will not be seeing Ipswich for the first few games, unfortunately. But I'm sure I'll just be missing some misery. Dwight Gale is only 32. Looks like that is brutal, Martin. Very disrespectful. Speaking of disrespect, I think you're about to get some disrespect here from Tom. How many loyalty points did Matt lose when he left the game against Preston early? Now, we haven't planned this. I believe in any consumer's right to leave any ground when they choose. But what, did you miss some goals or something, Matt?
Yeah, and do you know what? I am.
And you never heard the end of it, right?
Yeah, no, I'll put my hands up because the CBS saw the most late goals out of any in the championship last season. So what was I thinking? I think the thing for me was it was just on that occasion. I think I tried to beat the traffic, and it ran over because a fan. I think there was like an incident where a fan ran on the pitch, meaning there was added time on top of added time on top of added time. And I just remember thinking, it's done. And I literally left 10 seconds before the goal went in. But I saw all the other late goals, so if that gets me any points back.
I remember, it was at the end of that 18-19 season. I was at Norwich. I was doing Norwich-Sheffield Wednesday. And I'm the nerd that when the stoppage time gets put up, I press the stopwatch on my phone so I know exactly where we are because the scoreboard never puts it up. And it was 97, and I'm walking down the stairs at 96 minutes 30, and Norwich get a free kick, and I'm like, and the season they were having, I'm like, oh god, right, we all know what's coming. So I kind of like walked around, and the steward's trying to move me on, and I'm kind of stood peering over, and Mario Vrancic put the free kick in the top corner, and I'm like, especially as an Ipswich fan, I'm like, of course he put the free kick in the top corner, didn't he? Yeah. Right. This is a question that's come up loads. And I disagree with a lot of people on this. How do you think the 5 subs will affect this season? Which teams will benefit the most? I think it's a marginal gain. I think people are making a bit much of it. My opinion, Matt, is Barnsley were the masters of the 5 subs, where they used to take 3 strikers off and bring 3 strikers on and then just press the hell out of everyone for 90 minutes. I think unless it's an actual tactic that's imperative to your game plan, it's a marginal gain. It's a few percent here and there. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? Because a lot of people disagree with me and think, no, it's going to be a big deal and some teams are really going to finish a few places higher because of it. What are you saying?
For the championship, I would say it's a marginal gain. But if we were talking about the Premier League here with the difference in squad depth for the likes of the top 6 teams against the rest, I think you see a big difference there. You know, they just keep chucking on quality. In the championship, there'll obviously be some teams that play on it, obviously with bigger and better squads. But I agree. I think it'd be very marginal in the championship.
What do we got? We've got about 1 minute left. I'm going to do one more question. Let me scroll right down to the bottom and see what we got. Apologies. What should we do? There we go. We'll go with this last one. What are your thoughts on Willock and Chair at QPR and whether they could kick on this season? We think Michael Beale's going to play 2 number 10s, which sounds absolutely perfect for those two. I think they're both great players. I know I've predicted QPR to drop a couple of places, but Willock particularly was just glorious last season. Do you think they can match the first half of last season?
We mentioned QPR earlier, and I said I could literally see this going either way. I think, for me, based on the second half of last season, that's really sort of clouded my judgment when it comes to QPR because it was just such a fall off. But obviously, we said about the managerial change, and I think with Beale being very inexperienced, I think we might see a reverse this season where QPR possibly have a slow start, and grow into the season.
No, that makes sense. Guys, amazing stuff. No script today. Matt and I only arranged this this morning to actually do the stream, and we've done a full hour. Brilliant support. 141 likes. We made you 135, Matt. If anyone does, where any of the 167 people watching right now wants to hit like before we go. We're going to hit 150 then. We just need to say a big thank you to Alexis, who I think we both know, Matt, don't we? Great show, guys. 4.49 on the super chat. Thank you, everybody, for all your super chats. Some brilliant comments in here. We're not going to read any more. Matt, give us one more plug for the channel, for the Patreon, and what we can see this season over on your channel.
Yep, sure. It's Matt SB on YouTube. Stands for Matt Sky Blues. Obviously, I'm a Coventry fan, but I do championship content. So obviously, if you like Ben's stuff, have a look, see if you enjoy mine. I've put my championship predictions out this week. Branching out to do a bit more football content in general, so Premier League, League One. If that interests you, have a look. I've got a Patreon page and my socials are Matt SB as well. And thank you again for having me on today, Ben.
You're so welcome. Very highly recommended. Go and get over to Matt's channel, hit subscribe, and if there is a little bit of extra wonga in the pot at the end of the month, go and check out his Patreon as well. Good, honest, hard-working content creator, and I know how much of a slog it is. Guys, I'm going to be back with predictions tomorrow, and then, as I said to Matt, see you all in May. It's just going to be absolute carnage for the next 9 months, isn't it? 160 likes. Thank you, everybody. And let the chaos begin. If you're saying nice things in the chat, I'll stick them all up in the advert at the end, and we will see you all very soon. Say goodbye, Matt.
Take care, guys.
And goodbye from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button, and to be notified every time we upload, ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.